Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of JD Talks NASCAR. On this episode, we're going to look back at last night, Easter Sunday's race at Richmond Raceway, and talk about it, and also talk about what is going to be my first attended race in person at Martinsville for this season. You all know it's not my first time ever, but my first time for this year, and I'll preview what to expect there, and anything else we can think about. Um, I want to start off by saying um, I might be in the minority, and I know the drivers definitely probably don't like it. But as a fan, I love the Easter night races. I loved it when they had it at Bristol Dirt, and I loved it at Richmond. Um, and as far as the race goes, I'll talk about it overall how I felt about it, but as far as a fan and the viewing experience, um, I was really a big fan of the Easter Sunday race. So, and starting it on time, and that came from having to start with wet weather tires. There was rain in the area in Richmond all day long on Sunday, and so NASCAR was faced with a choice. Um, do we delay the race a couple hours? Do we start on time on wet weather tires and have the drivers dry the track as they keep going around? Do we send jet dryers out and postpone? You know, they were they want to get the race in on time because of the time slot that it was on with TV. And I feel like they made the right decision. I think starting it on time with wet weather tires was the best decision. Um, some people online I've saw do not, but these are all my opinions, and my opinion is that NASCAR made the right call in starting the race on time with the wet weather tires. I thought it made for really good racing the first 35 laps. The first 35 is what they ran. There was multiple lines on the track during this time. You could run top, you could run middle, you could run bottom. The bottom part of the track, was the most damp throughout the night. It felt like, but I was really happy with the racing on the wet weather tire. Um, I think once again, just like it was at North Wilkesboro last year for the All Star race, I think the racing was better on the wet weather tire than on the regular tire. And you know, do you really want that? Probably not. But it's just how it was. It's just how it is. I don't know if they'll be changing that, but for this particular tire used at Richmond, I felt like the wet weather was better, put on a better show, put on better racing for the fans. And like I said, they raced on the wet weather for 35 laps, the wet weather tires, and then they switched back into regular 35 laps in. And the first thing to happen after that was you saw Josh Berry and Daniel Suarez get into it. I can't really place blame on either guy here. To be honest with you, it just looked like one of those incidents in racing where two people were going for the same spot. To be honest with you, I don't think Josh intentionally got into Daniel, and I don't think Daniel intentionally tried to come down on Josh's nose. So I think, like I said, I saw they both talked after the race. They seemed cordial and fine. Um, I'm sure in the heat of the moment, Daniel was pretty mad, and Josh said over the radio something to the effect of, "He makes that decision to cut my nose off." You saw, or at least I saw in the replay, that flame coming out of the pipes of the four car means he's lifting. He's trying to get the car slowed down, and still gets into Suarez, I will say Suarez had a heck of a almost save. That's probably the best almost save that I've seen in a while. It felt like that he slid for a solid 5 seconds before the car spun, but no damage. Didn't get hit by anybody else. And Daniel was able to continue. Josh was fine too. Josh Berry, since I'm talking about him, at Bristol and now at Richmond, of course, Josh is a short track guy, late model guy. I can't say enough good things about the way he started this year. He's done very solid. Stuart Haas, not as a whole organization, but particularly Josh Berry and Noah Gregson have been highlights for that organization so far this year. I like both those guys, so I really hope that they continue that, but that they have both been improvements, for sure. That they've been better than I expected them to be, I should say. I had Gregson as um, a dark horse guy that could potentially get in the playoff on points. But with his point penalty, he's still sitting at 30th. Without that, though, he's inside the top 20 and in the mix for a playoff spot. So that just shows how well they are running on a consistent basis. I mean, it feels like this isn't factually correct, or it might be, but I didn't go back and research it. But it feels like Noah's ran inside the top 15 several weeks this year. So I love to see that for the 10. But back to Josh Berry, especially at short tracks, and heck, even this upcoming weekend at Martinsville, I expect him to be in the hunt. I mean, he's proven on these short tracks that he can go right now and compete. Led several laps at Bristol, was up front for several laps here at Richmond. So he's doing all the right things. He's in decent equipment with a good crew chief, and he just got off to a very solid start in the Cup Series. Kyle Larson wins the first stage. Bubba Wallace was second in the stage. Alex Bowman third. And I talk about my fantasy picks every week on here. I had Bowman this week. Um, he was a long shot. He has won at Richmond before, but he was a long shot going into the race. For some reason, he was a lot longer shot than I thought he should be. Um, and he qualifies in the top 5. I'm feeling good. He runs third in the first stage. I'm feeling real good. And then we'll get into what happened. But it was this is next on my list. I think it was the Kyle Busch incident. I think Bowman was still running top 5, and this Kyle Busch hits the wall caution that was debatable as to whether it should be a caution. Really cost the 48 team. They end up bringing it home, I think, 17th. They definitely had a top 5 car. They ran top 5 all day long. So I'll take if I pick you in fantasy, my race winners have got better these last couple weeks, but if I pick you in fantasy, I'm pretty much jinxing you. So I'm sorry about that. But back to the Kyle Busch thing. He hit the wall decently hard. He didn't do much damage, if any at all, to his car. I didn't see any debris on the track. Out of the good calls that NASCAR has made this year, all the good things they have done, I really didn't. I really don't think that should have been a caution. I mean, I get it if you see a car up out of the groove and hitting the fence, slowing down, especially on a short track. They're normally quick to call it, but this year they've done a good job of kind of waiting it out before they throw the caution. So I thought that was a little off base as to what they've done this year. But I mean, either way, but you throw the caution, people are going to criticize you. You leave it green, people are going to criticize you. So, um, nothing really they could do in that spot. They felt like it was best to call the caution. So ultimately, I'm gonna. I'll go. I went back and watched the replay. There was nobody really around him, but I do get the point as to okay, this car's way slower than everybody else. You need to let them know there. Let's throw the caution. So Martin Truex Jr. wins stage 2. Um, you know, I definitely thought this was a Larson or Truex Jr. race from the jump. Larson won here last year. Martin Truex Jr. always good at Richmond. Um, but they got the 2 stage wins, and it looked like they raced to lose. Of course, until what I'm about to get into. But Christopher Bell. Then after stage 2, everybody pits. They go. C Bell goes long on the pit cycle, hoping to save some tires for the end, and he'll be able to uh, pass people towards the end of the run. and it did really well. It looked like it was going to work really well, but Seabell too fast exiting pit road from the lead. This one hurt Seabell. He comes back to finish sixth even after this, but I thought he had a car definitely capable of winning. He didn't qualify good, but when the race started, you saw him climb up fairly easily. So hated that for Christopher. And then the race changed. But the stage two, from the end of stage two to two to go in the race to completely green, long green flag run. But then the fireworks happen. Kyle Larson gets loose coming off of turn four. Just looked like Bubba was there after Larson was getting loose and ends up spinning him. Larson does a heck of a job in saving the car, keeping it off the wall, um, and is able to rebound for a top three. And this he spun with two to go in the race and ends up bringing it home third. You know, I saw Larson and Bubba talking after the race. Everything seems good there. I was laughing, smiling, cutting up. So, um, as much as the NASCAR fans of each driver wants to start something, I don't think there's anything there. I already saw crazy stuff. You know, it's Bubba. People are gonna hate. Um, but you know, I think Larson and Bubba are good. I mean, I didn't see anything there that was intentional by either driver. I mean, Larson was fighting loose on long runs all night long, and the car finally just got the best of him. So he got loose, and then Bubba didn't have time. I mean, he you could tell he tried to check up, but it was similar to the Barry and Suarez situation. You know, with Barry checking up, I felt like Bubba was trying to get stopped, just didn't have time, and ended up spinning. Ended up hurting Bubba Wallace more than it hurt Larson. I think they were running fourth and fifth at the time. Um, you know, Bubba had a bad pit stop after the caution, ends up finishing outside of the top 10. And then Larson, like I said, third. So, unfortunate for both guys. Oh, well, more unfortunate for Bubba, not really unfortunate for Larson. Um, the biggest loser in all that, Martin Truex Jr. He led I think I saw something that said over 200 laps for like the sixth time at Richmond, which is a crazy stat. I just said earlier he's always good there. He was my pick to win the race. Um, so that kind of you know, I'll trade my driver winning for a correct race pick any day. But Martin Truex gave me the chance to sweep the weekend in my race picks. I picked Chandler Smith and Toyota and Martin Truex Jr. I said it would be a Toyota sweep. It was indeed a Toyota sweep. Chandler Smith won the Xfinity race. And then, everybody, let me hear it. Denny Hamlin wins at Richmond. After the wreck with two to go, everyone pitted. Martin Truex Jr. came in from the lead. And listen, Denny's pit crew went out and won him this race at the end. I mean, it was obvious, you know, it was down to basically Truex and Logano. I mean, it was Truex's race. Logano made a little push with about 10 to go, but Truex widened the gap back out. Denny was on fresher tires, but he had kind of stalled out at third. So it was basically Truex's race to win. He comes down in the lead. Logano comes down in second, and they come out of the pits, and Denny's pit crew 9-second flat pit stop. Now that is a money stop if there ever was one. I mean, great work by that pit crew. They've been solid all year long, and now they're finally getting the props. They were good at Bristol when he won. They're good again last night. They gained him spots all night long last night. Even when it didn't look like he was going to win the race, they kept him in it. And the money stop of the night. I mean, this is a pit crew win. Denny, of course, had to do the work in holding off Truex and Logano and Larson at the end, but the pit crew put him in position to go out and do his job. And, it's win number 2 on the year for the 11 team. I expected Denny to have a great year. But to have 2 wins this early in the season, him and William Byron are the 2 that have done it. You know, huge, absolutely huge. 53 career wins. You know, his goal is to get to 60, and he talked on his podcast a couple weeks ago after he won Bristol, and Jared asked him, which is his co-host, asked him, could you see yourself winning 60 this season? And if you do, would you call it quits then? Um, I frankly laughed because I was like, there's no way, he could get 8 or 9 in a year. I mean, he's already got 2, and I think we're through 8 races, 7, 8 races, and he's won 2. Um, let me check to see if my math is right here. Let's see how many we've done. All right, Daytona. We're through 7, not even through 8. We're through 7 races, and he's won 2. And I'll throw in that he won the Clash at the Coliseum. So Denny and the 11 team absolutely on a roll. The first 2 super speedway races didn't go the way we wanted, but since then he's been on a heater, and Byron, Larson, Hamlin, and Seabell I would put as your 4 favorites right now. Martin's looked good at certain points, but he just can't finish them. It don't seem like so. That's what it's looking like right now. I think this is the best I've seen the 11 look. Definitely with the next gen car, but probably since that year that him and Kevin Harvick battled it out for regular season points, and then I think it was 2020. Might have been 2021, but um, they're firing on all cylinders. They were solid last year, but they've took it to a whole nother level. And I'm sorry for the Denny Hamlin infomercial. You all should know by now that if he wins, I'm going to talk about it in great detail. It also helps for the second time in 3 years and then the first time he did it was actually on my birthday. My birthday is tomorrow, so he won on my birthday weekend for the second time in 3 years. So that's a huge deal. I really, it makes the birthday more enjoyable when your favorite driver wins. And Richmond tends to be on this weekend a lot, and it's one of his best tracks. So I always look forward to that. There's nothing I would love more than for him to go back to back with me in attendance at Martinsville. It would be awesome. He hasn't won there in a long time, but I think the competition will just be too stiff, to be honest with you. I think there's a bunch of guys, and I'll talk about it, that are due for good runs and that are good at Martinsville. Denny's obviously one of the top ones there too. But shout out to the 11 team. I'll be supporting my all-in shirt at Martinsville. That's Denny's fan slogan this year. So if you are a Denny Hamlin fan, uh, let's go. I know some of y'all texted me last night, and I have to give the group chats that I'm in heck about Denny winning because it seems like nobody else likes him but me. But I'm glad he got it done. 2 wins in the bank, 11 playoff points total. I think you can say, oh, he chokes in the playoffs, whatever. I think he's submitted himself so far this year as a definite favorite. The Xfinity Series race at Richmond was solid. Um, you know, Chandler Smith ends up coming out on top, his second win of the season so far, and third overall. He won at Richmond last year when I was there, won his first race. Um, and now we go to Martinsville, where you know all 3 series are there this week. I was hoping my buddy Daniel Dye was racing Xfinity this week. I texted him; he is not. He'll just be in the trucks. But I, I I'm excited about all 3. Martinsville Truck Series races and Xfinity are known to be crap shows. Um, so we have that to look forward to. But at the same time, they're very enjoyable. To be honest with you, I love watching all. I love watching anything at Martinsville. Um, so who do I want in the Truck Series race? Um, man, I don't see many Cup guys entered. Um, I don't see any Cup guys. Um, Sammy Smith is in the Seven Spire truck. He's normally Xfinity Series. Um, you know, Christian Eckes was really good at Bristol. He seems to be a really good short track guy. So give me him. Give me Christian Eckes at Martinsville. Um, I think just his short track program, especially, I mean, he's really, really good at Bristol. He outdoed Kyle Busch at Bristol this year. But give me him to win at Martinsville. And then Xfinity at Martinsville. Now, this is one of my honestly, it's like I just said, it can be a crap show, but it's one of my favorite ones to watch of the year, Xfinity wise. I feel like this car's really good at Martinsville. Um, so I'm excited to watch it. Speaking of the Xfinity series, since I'm talking about it, um, how about Joey Gase and Dawson Cram getting into it? That was wild. That was, I mean, it looked like Dawson Cram just drove in too deep and kind of just spun Gase out. To be honest with you, Dawson says it wasn't on purpose. And then Joey Gase ripping the back bumper cover off of his car and throwing it at Dawson Cram's car. I thought that was one of the most awesome things I'd saw in a while. And he took out his frustration and ends up getting him a lot of TV time and a lot of people talking about it. So it ended up being cool. I hope NASCAR don't find him. I haven't seen anything about that as far as finding him or anything. I think they're just going to let it play out. Um, so I think that's the best decision. A guy that jumps out to me in this Martinsville race, um, you know, Chandler Smith coming off his win at Richmond. He's I wouldn't say he's the best at Martinsville, but a guy that was good at Richmond this week that I think Martinsville he hasn't won here in the Cup Series, but he's very solid here. And he's also in the best Xfinity equipment, in my opinion, and that's the 20 of Eric Almirola. He ran solid at Richmond. I think he gets in victory lane in Martinsville. He won an Xfinity race last year at Sonoma. Like I said, that was in far inferior equipment as to what he's in now. So I like the 20 of Eric Almirola to get in Xfinity victory lane at Martinsville. Now, on to the Cup side. There's several guys that I see here that are very good options. Um, the two that jump out to me that I think should be your favorites are Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson won here last year. This first race very dominantly. Comes back the next one, didn't run too well. Ryan Blaney dominates the second race of the year. Blaney's been good here for a long time, it feels like. Um, Another guy that I'm looking at, but I can't pick him to win. Um, you know, he gets his first top five of the year at Richmond, and that's Chase Elliott. He's won at Martinsville before. My son is going with me. That's his driver, so he's seen him win in person before a couple times, but that would be good for him to get back into victory lane. Um, the Cup race is really hard. There's so many potential winners. But I'll go with. Man, this is hard. I will say Stuart Haas qualified very well here this first race. So do not be shocked to see some Fords doing very good. Joey Logano, like I said, Ryan Blaney, those guys. But I'm going to go off. I wouldn't say off the beaten path because this guy is arguably one of the best drivers in the field. But this year's been a struggle. Richmond was a struggle. But for some reason, I feel like they've eventually got to get it turned around. And this would definitely be a long shot. But I'm going to take Kyle Busch. I'm going to take him. And if he wins, I'll be very much patting myself on the back. because they have struggled a lot this year, both the 8 and the 3. But I like Kyle Busch here. He hasn't been to victory lane in a while. Um, feels like so. Give me the 8 car. Um, I could just pick favorites every week. I don't think that's going. I don't think that's you know one fair and two very enjoyable. I would say Martin Truex was one of the favorites this week. This past week, I picked him. But I'm gonna go off the beaten path a little bit and take the eight of Kyle Busch to win it. If I was gonna have a second guy, I would pick. I mean, it's hard to go against Blaney, but I think he'll be the overwhelming favorite. Um, Also, Christopher Bell's a guy to watch. He's good at Martinsville. The Toyotas are usually good at Martinsville, so we'll see. But ultimately, I think Kyle Busch wins at Martinsville. Let's look at the standings real quick. Regular season. Martin Truex Jr. leads the points. Kyle Larson second, 14 points back. Denny Hamlin third, 18 points back. And Ty Gibbs fourth, 34 back. Ryan Blaney fifth, 41 back. So the top 5 are separated by 41 points. And, it's still early on. We're only 7 races in. But to get to be first in the regular season points, definitely does very good things for you in the playoffs. So that's something I'll keep an eye on as the time goes on. I want to touch on some notable finishers for Richmond real quick. Good finishes. Joey Logano was due for a good run. He brings it home second. That's very solid for that team. Chase Elliott, like I said, a top 5. Brad Kay and Chris Buescher, it's crazy how similar they run every week. It feels like 8th and 9th. Josh Berry and Gregson, 11th and 12th. Very, very good runs for those guys. Bubba, 13th, but I felt like he had a top 5 car. He would have finished top 5 had the caution not come out. Eric Jones, solid run, 14th. Now for not so good runs, people that I thought could run better. Ty Gibbs in 16th was strange. He's been super fast all year long. Like I said, Alex Bowman had a top 5 car, 17th. Ryan Blaney was off all race long. Finishes 19th. Kyle Busch, 20th. Todd Gilliland, who qualified 6th, 21st. Then you have, there wasn't anybody too surprising that fell back. I'd say the most surprising probably Ricky Stenhouse in 33rd. Just was bad off. Corey had a bad day finishing last as well. So not anybody too surprising in the back. But most important thing, Denny Hamlin brings home the win at Richmond. So I'm excited for Martinsville. I'm not going to sit here and say that Richmond was this great race, like the greatest race of all time. 1 through 10, I have the bias factor because of Denny winning. I would bump it up to a 7. But if I'm just a regular NASCAR fan, I would give it a 5 or 6. I think it was about a 4 before the last lap caution. Richmond's Richmond, folks. The first 35 laps, if the whole race was like that, I'm giving it an 8 or a 9. But when they went to the regular tires, if you love strategy and you love green flag runs, which I do at some points, but that's just, as a casual fan, I try to, when I'm rating these, I think as a casual fan, in my opinion, it was probably a 6. I'll give it a 6. But you all give me your opinions. I'm just trying to think as a casual fan what I would give it. So, thank you all as always for listening. Ever since I announced several episodes back, whenever it was, that we had eclipsed 1,000 listens or streams, whatever you want to call it, the show's picked up even more. So I can't wait to hit that 2,000 mark, and you all are all to credit for that. I can't appreciate. I can't tell you all how much I appreciate you, every single one of you. You all, the fans, are what keeps me doing this. I've really enjoyed it. Still not quite a year since I first started, but we're approaching that time, and it's just been a whirlwind. It's been awesome. I hope it continues to grow. That's the number one thing, and uh, you listeners are responsible for that. I mean, if you all are enjoying the content, it will continue to grow. So I really can't thank you all enough. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I didn't think that 10 people would give a crap about what I said about NASCAR. When I first started this, I was like, when I first started almost a year ago, I had no clue. I was just like, I've got time with my health issues. I've been out of work. I've got time. I love talking about NASCAR with other people. I love talking about sports with other people. You know, so why not start a platform? That was my thought process. I've did it. We've done a giveaway. I'd like to do another one of those soon, but the giveaway helped grow the page. Then starting starting this year off with a bang. My season preview episode um, was the most streamed of all my episodes. A lot of that had to do with the social media posts taking off on Facebook. Um, but we're turning corners still here at JD Talks NASCAR. So I'm so thankful. I can't, like I said, I've probably broke a record for saying thank you um, as many times as I have, but I truly, truly mean it. You all as an audience, and you all keep me engaged too. You all talk with me about the races and give me your questions and stuff. Speaking of questions, get back into sending questions of the week if you can, please. Anybody and everybody can send me a question, and I'll more than likely pick them. I'll get to them eventually. If I don't get to yours the very next week, I'll get to it before the season's over with. I promise. So send those submissions in. JD Mounts on Facebook, JD Talks NASCAR on Twitter, JD's JD Talks NASCAR everywhere. Even on the Spotify tab under the Q&A, you can ask me a question. I'm the only one that sees those things. So, and if you have, by the way, if you have rated the races or if you have gave me opinions on the podcast, thank you all so much. If you do it on Spotify, I'm the only person that sees it. So if you don't want your information to be public or whatever, I'm the only person that can see that stuff. But we get a lot of them. So thank you all for that. That means a lot as well. But I do want to hear from you. I gave the race a 6 from this week. What do you all give it on a scale of 1 to 10? And let's get ready for Martinsville. I'm ready to pack up and go right now after what I saw last night. The end of that race made me, it's got me itching for more racing. So this will be my first time at Martinsville. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Heard it's a great place to watch a race. If you all know, well, I'm sure if you've been listening for since I've started this, I've said multiple times, my favorite track to go to and attend in person is Bristol. So Martinsville, very small track, not as fast as Bristol, but there's going to be racing all over the track at all times. I'm pretty positive of it. So thank you all. If anybody's got any recommendations on which I don't really know how much time I'll have in Martinsville other than going to the race and stuff. But if you've got any recommendations on places to eat, that's always welcome here. I'm a guy who loves to eat at different places as I go to different cities and different race towns. And of course, we get into you got any places, which I've got a guy that I really like to go get diecast from. I'm a diecast collector. If we've got any diecast collectors that listen, y'all send me your diecast. I love looking at them as well. So thank you all for listening. And until next week, where I'm recapping a race, I might go live on Facebook or Twitter or X, I should say. I'm sorry, or social media in general. Since this is like the first race that I've attended to this year, but I'll let you know. Um, this has been awesome so far, and I hope, like I said, it continues to grow. So, thank you all. This has been JD's NASCAR. Or, whoo, Almost gave you the old title. No, no, no. This is JD Talks NASCAR, and we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. It's crazy how many people like the different. I have two different podcasts that I'm doing, and the different um, platforms or apps that they dominate on. With this one, it seems like almost all my listeners come from Apple. On the other one, it's very balanced. So, to all my Apple listeners or listeners everywhere, thank you all so much. And until next week, this has been JD Talks NASCAR. And if Kyle Busch wins, I'll expect some pats on the back because that's a very long shot. But thank you all. Until next week, this has been JD Talks NASCAR.